The sea had a mood of its own that morning, calm, blue, and endless, as if it was hiding something beneath its glassy surface. On the deck of the Golden Delight, a worn fishing boat that had seen more storms than calm waters, a crew of tired men prepared for what they hoped would be their last day at sea. They had been out for almost 2 weeks, longer than planned. The catch had been poor, their food supplies low, and every man on board longed for dry land. Still, they pushed forward because in fishing, giving up meant going home empty-handed. Their captain, an old sailor named Martin, squinted against the sun as he adjusted their course. "We'll head further out," he said. "One last try." The men didn't argue. The sea had taught them patience and silence. Hours later, they dropped their nets. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the rope tightened, the deck groaned, and every man scrambled to pull. It took all their strength, but when the net finally broke the surface, they stood stunned. It wasn't just a good haul, it was a miracle. A mountain of silver fish spilled across the deck, glinting like coins under the light. Cheers erupted. For the first time in days, laughter filled the air. The crew worked tirelessly, pulling in catch after catch until the boat's storage was packed to the brim. They'd never seen a haul this large. For a while, it felt like the sea had forgiven them. But by the time they turned home, the weather had changed. The waves grew restless, slapping against the hull. Clouds gathered on the horizon. The Golden Delight swayed under the growing storm, its crew bracing against the cold spray of salt and rain. "Hold her steady," Martin shouted over the wind. It took every ounce of skill they had, but eventually they found calmer waters. Exhausted but alive, they decided to circle around the storm, even if it meant 2 more days at sea. By the time the clouds cleared, they were battered and starving. Their food was nearly gone, and they survived mostly on rainwater and the fish they cooked over a small flame on deck. Still, spirits lifted when one of the crew spotted land on the horizon. "We're almost home," he cried. The men cheered, their exhaustion momentarily forgotten. But as the laughter echoed across the waves, one of the younger fishermen, Elias, noticed something strange near the boat. A gray shape gliding just beneath the surface. A dolphin. At first, he smiled they'd seen plenty before. But then, as it surfaced again, his smile faded. The dolphin's tail was tangled in a thick net, its body struggling to stay afloat. It wasn't just trapped, it was drowning. Elias shouted, "Captain, we've got one caught in a net out there." The laughter died instantly. Every man turned to look. The dolphin was drifting past them, barely moving. They all knew what it meant. If they didn't act fast, it would die. Captain Martin didn't hesitate. "Turn her around," he barked. And just like that, every man who had been desperate to go home found himself fighting the sea once again, this time not for profit, but for something far greater. The boat swung hard as the crew changed course, the engine groaning in protest. The men moved quickly, ropes flying, eyes fixed on the struggling dolphin ahead. It tried to dive, but the heavy tangle around its tail dragged it back to the surface every time. Its movements were weak, desperate, a silent cry for help in the middle of the endless sea. As they drew closer, Elias leaned over the rail. "It's exhausted. We have to move now," the captain nodded. They didn't have the right equipment for a rescue like this, but that didn't stop them. Using the very nets they made their living from, they cast one gently into the water, trying to guide the dolphin in without hurting it. On the first attempt, the animal fought weakly, spinning in panic, but then it stopped resisting, almost as if it understood. Slowly, carefully, the crew lifted it onto the deck. The dolphin lay still, breathing hard, its slick gray skin glistening in the sunlight. The net around its tail was cutting deep, leaving dark marks. Elias knelt beside it. "Easy, friend," he whispered. With a quick motion, he took his knife and began to cut the tangled mess away. One by one, the strands gave way until the final knot fell free. The crew held their breath as the dolphin twitched, then raised its head, releasing a small, soft sound like a sigh of relief. Its tail moved again, slow but steady. They guided it toward the edge of the deck. "Let's get you home," the captain murmured. Together they lifted the dolphin back into the water. For a moment it floated there, unmoving. Then, with one powerful flick of its tail, it dove beneath the waves. The men stood silently, staring at the ripples fading into the distance. Hours later, as the Golden Delight finally neared the shore, a splash broke the calm. A dolphin leapt high beside the boat, gliding through the air before disappearing into the waves again. Elias smiled, his eyes wide. "It's him. It's the same one." No one argued. They didn't need to. They just stood there, smiling at the sea, knowing they'd given something back to the waters that had given them so much. They returned home not just with a full catch, but with a story, one that reminded them that even in the harshest corners of the ocean, compassion still has a place.